Welcome to the AI Applied podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer, here with Connor Grennan today. This has been an absolutely insane weekend with everything that has happened, from Sam Altman being fired to almost being brought back to going over to Microsoft to OpenAI almost merging with Anthropic. It's insanity. So today we're going to break this down in another emergency episode of the AI Applied podcast. Connor, give me your take. You have been on an absolute tear this week, posting on YouTube. I've seen multiple of your YouTube videos. This is a brand new channel you're starting, but 20,000 views. Like, this is a crazy topic. What is your take on everything happening right now?
I mean, where to begin? You know what it reminds me of, Jaden? Remember like the 2020 election when everybody was like up all night and like waiting for the results to come in, and are they going to call Arizona? Like, that's what this feels like. We were waiting for like the white smoke to come up above OpenAI. Like, when are they going to choose Sam Altman? It was just this coronation. Everybody on Twitter sending secret signals and then hearting Sam Altman's thing if it meant they were going to leave. And then all of a sudden midnight rolls around. They're like, actually, forget all that. Sam Altman's not coming back. So there has been so much. Hopefully people are kind of caught up. Let me say right off the top, there's so many really fun conspiracies here, and they don't even seem that conspiracy thingish to me. It just seems like these are possibilities. But let's just start here at the root of it. First of all, Ilya Sutskever was, imagined to be the mastermind behind all that. And as much as you were it was distasteful, everything else, you could sort of see where he was maybe coming from around this, right? But now all of a sudden, Sutskever, not all of a sudden, but like recently, Sutskever is like, actually, I'm on, Team Sam and everything else like that. And now what's happening is that you have Sutskever saying, I'm on Team Sam, and you have 3 board members, all independent. You have Adam D'Angelo, sort of, the CEO of Quora. You have Tasha McCauley, who's the tech entrepreneur who started like a robot company in California. I'm not trying to diminish it. It's not famous. And then you have Helen Toner, who's a Georgetown director of a center. Again, no shade toward those people. But when you have these 3 people deciding essentially what is the fate of the OpenAI world, Jaden, that's insane.
Absolutely insane. So there's a bunch of different angles. Let's talk about maybe the Anthropic angle first, because this is kind of the most recent development in the whole story. We can go back and talk about Quora, which is a very juicy topic as well. With Anthropic, of course, they in all the craziness, they were looking for a new CEO. They approached the CEO of Anthropic and said, hey, would you come on as the CEO of OpenAI and we'll do a merger? This, in my mind, is just insanity, and also just kind of, in my mind, goes to prove this thing was not well thought out. This was not planned. It's like Microsoft kicking the CEO of Microsoft, Satya, off the CEO, and then going to Google and being like, hey, would you like to come on? Or going to Apple and be like, hey, Tim Cook, would you like to be our new CEO? We'll do a merger with you. Like, that is insane. These are 2 completely different companies that are competing. They're cutthroat. Like, why would you even recommend a merger? That seems ridiculous to me. But what's really interesting that a lot of people have been talking about is the fact that the new CEO that's just been brought into OpenAI, he was formerly the CEO of Twitch, which was acquired by Amazon. Amazon also invested $4 billion into Anthropic, and he was advisor for Anthropic. So for all intents and reasons, there is so many conflicts of interest that seem like this should absolutely not be happening, number one. But then the whole Anthropic merger idea seems very shady in my mind.
Yeah, utterly shady. And here's the thing, like, we could talk conspiracy theory, things that like sort of, with Adam D'Angelo and how he has, started Poe. And then, he and 2 other people now at this point are holding this whole thing up, not even holding it up, like on the verge of like collapsing. Like OpenAI, they're going to be, I was seeing this on YouTube, like they're going to be like, somebody's going to be like the CEO of like an empty building with like amazing furniture, like it's totally bizarre. But with Anthropic and everything else, put conspiracy aside for a second. I just want to look at the facts for a second here, right? So, and take Ilya Sutskever out of the equation, because he's trying to put this whole thing back together again. No matter what angle you take, there have to be a couple of facts here. And the facts are that these 3 individuals, maybe with Sutskever, maybe not, it's unclear on the timeline, were looking for a CEO. They first got Mira Murati, the CTO, in there, and then they went to GitHub. They went somewhere else. I don't have my notes in front of me. We're doing those so fast. Eventually, they got to Emmett Shear, the Twitch guy. But when they got to Dario, from Anthropic, the nuts part about this to me is that, think about how this decision was made. First of all, it was made so fast that, Microsoft, Sam Altman himself, all these people only found out minutes or hours before. So that was Friday. Then they need a new CEO. And then Mira Murati says, no, I'm not going to be your new CEO, which means, forget conspiracy theories, in a matter of hours, these three individuals with essentially no backing unless they had like friends or something like that. And these people are not like hardcore giant corporate raider type of people, are going around trying to recruit a CEO for a $90 billion company. And one of their proposals was to go to Dario. Oh my gosh, his last name now is anyway Amade. Sorry, Dario Amade, and say, "Hey, we'd love for you to do this." And Dario Amade is like, "Well, no, because I have Anthropic and we're number 2 and we feel very comfortable with our position." And they're like, "Well, what if we merge?" Like, what kind of, sorry, I'm not trying to throw shade here, but what kind of kindergarten type thing, like even government regulation alone, like what
Would
kind of
never let
things
it
are there?
happen.
How would that, I mean, so like, Jaden, when you see this, like what's running through your mind when you see this happening?
I think not well planned, frantic, grasping at straws. They want to do everything, literally everything, just destroy the company. 90% of employees quitting. They want to do everything except let Sam Altman back. Which, like, if there was like some big red flag, some big
Right.
written reason, which you would expect, I'd be like, oh my gosh, Sam Altman's terrible. You know, he was endangering people's lives or doing something insane. Like, yeah, get him out. They've not said a single reason except they don't trust his ability to lead, which obviously he's done a good job leading. So that's not a real reason. They've given no reason. And so it makes it seem all very, very suspicious, and they seem very desperate, essentially, which is not the situation you want to be in. This was about to be like the biggest company. This is the biggest company to come out of Silicon Valley in the last, who knows, like how long. Like this thing could compete with all the major companies. So this is it's pure insanity. And I think bringing it back a little bit and talking about how we got into this mess to begin with. Everyone thought it was Ilya. Of course, Ilya. Well, I actually heard from, you get all these like hilarious insider scoops, but apparently Greg Brockman's wife went to like the headquarters and she was like talking with him and she was crying and like
Yeah.
he reversed his opinion on it, and Ilya's now on board with Sam Altman. So some people are saying, based Mrs. Brockman. I don't know. In any case, he's on board and he's like, fine. He said he's going to quit if Sam Altman doesn't come back. So it's absolute insanity. And people are saying, how do we get into this situation? And then there's the whole Quora kind of conflict of interest. I wonder if you could break this down for us.
Yeah, so the Quora conflict of interest is a fascinating one. This is where, okay, a little bit of reckless speculation, but I love it. Okay, so and this is the idea, right? The theory here, and again, we're not subscribing to this. We're just kind of pointing out that this is an insane conflict of interest. So Adam D'Angelo is the CEO of Quora, and Quora launched a platform that essentially hosts all these other large language models into sort of an interface where you can take different, GPT, Anthropic, everything else, and put them into personalized chatbots. Now, I never got a lot out of it. I had friends that did. I mean, but they had, I think, like 1 million users or something like that. But it's essentially what what GPTs were before GPTs. But then GPTs came out way better. First of all, way easier to use. Second of all, you could upload your own documents into this, which made it way more powerful, way more specific. It was the reason why I didn't love the Poe model, because I'm like, why wouldn't I just use ChatGPT and just throw in my own prompts for it? But anyway, that aside, I love this fictional scenario, right? Where you have somebody who's on the board of 2 companies, right? Or the CEO of one company that he founded, fiduciary duty to that company, private company. You don't have a lot of investor overlap, so you don't have that, right? And imagine in fiction, Jaden, I want to sort of paint this picture for like a Netflix fictional scenario where this person was also put on the board of the biggest company, almost just like as a gift, be like, hey, listen, you know what? Why don't you come on board? We've known each other for a few years since the Y Combinator days. Come on board. The guy's like, sure. All of a sudden, he's like the last one standing practically, and he has a decision to
For
make.
all intents and purposes, these should have been buddies, right?
Completely and totally. But now he has this moment where he actually has the power, if he just can convince one other human who's probably good friends with, to say, hey, I'm not saying he did this. I'm just saying what it could look like. I have the chance to bring down, literally collapse the competitor to my giant product, literally just by me deciding to do it. Nobody else figures into it. Now, I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying in fiction, you wouldn't believe it. And yet, the conflict of interest between the person who's holding all the cards here and the fact that he has a competing program, a competing software, a competing product, literally competes directly with it, is bizarre to me.
The biggest takeaway I've seen people talking about here is They've been saying it for a long time, but everyone always thinks there's an exception to the rule. If there is a startup with a sketchy governance structure, like it walk away, fix it. It can't be like you can't invest. You cannot put Microsoft cannot put $10 billion into a company with this situation. And they're like, oh, but we want like independent board members that aren't gonna like, what are you guys talking about? Just get a board that's on board with
Yeah.
OpenAI being successful. Do not get people with these conflicts of interest with competing platforms. It's outrageous, and like you've seen, it's caused this massive collapse. And there's a solution. Like you can reverse this. You can bring Sam Altman back, and they refuse to do it. Meaning, like they're sticking by their guns. They're not saying anything publicly. They're not making any statements. They're just sticking by their guns and allowing this whole thing to kind of collapse into like oblivion.
Zero statements. That's very, very strange to me. The zero statements. And then think about what you sort of touched on this a little bit. Think about the lengths that they're going through to not bring this human back. Now, I understand, Jaden, as you sort of said, if there was some giant scandal, something like really deeply troubling about Sam Altman, and look, you just can't bring him back. What do you want? I know people love him, but that's not the case. The case really was in this memo that he wasn't forthcoming with the board. They have not said anything about what that means or anything like that, which seems odd because everything that people are worried about, he's already said publicly. Do you know what I mean? Like, and if it is AGI sort of in the background, and then Ilya would have pushed the panic button and left his hand on the panic button. But that is not what is happening here. And the really crazy thing in this, in the fact that this board of essentially what is now 3 individuals, none of whom are really deeply connected to OpenAI. The thing that's so unbelievably troubling to me about all this is the lengths that they are going to avoid bringing Sam Altman back. Even when you think about Dario Amodei over at Anthropic, brilliant guy, obviously, right? Like works with his family on this. Anthropic is an up and comer. They're phenomenal. They're an incredible company. They're second place. A lot of people even prefer Claude to GPT and everything like that. But are you saying that this is like a better Sam Altman? When you look at him versus Sam Altman, they're actually very, very similar. Now, Amodei, you could argue that he's a little more committed, like the way that Anthropic has what they call a constitutional model, which is like it's based on the answers that it essentially provides is based on a value system, which I think is actually really interesting, as opposed to reinforced learning from human feedback, which can lead to a lot of bias, everything like that. But when you sort of strip that away, it's like, okay, different approaches. Sam Altman is very open about the safety issues. And in fact, you want somebody that high profile talking about safety in front of Congress. People seem to trust him and everything else. So is Dario Amodei. Dario Amodei is completely committed to the commercialization of Anthropic. And yet they are willing to merge OpenAI and lose the entire company just to switch one person for the other. I mean, does it make any sense to you?
Nope. It sounds completely petty. And then, so I think that whole thing is a mess to begin with. I don't know how they solve that. I don't know how they get out of that. What I will say is the competitors smell blood in the water right now. So you have the sharks circling. Anthropic today just launched a massive slew of updates. They're increasing their context window to 500 pages, 150,000 words. You're going to be able to put anything in there. And the incredible thing about this is they made a bunch of announcements. So it's more accurate. It has a bigger context window. It's faster. They have like all these massive updates that they're doing that essentially make it compete at a level of GPT-4. And then the kicker is they said, and API access is available now, meaning all of the developers right now that are like, struggling, like, oh my gosh, there's on the sentiment on Twitter and everything I've been seeing is like, hey, I'm building on, with OpenAI's GPT-4 API. I don't know what's going on. Should I continue? Is this whole company falling apart? Everyone's quitting. Like, like they have serious concerns. And I think the biggest damage here is reputational damage and trust to OpenAI. And in the midst of all of this, Anthropic's like, hey, guess what? Here, our product is now competing at a comparable level to GPT-4. In addition, we have a bigger context window, and happy birthday, the API access is available now. So for any developers questioning, you can immediately switch over to AI API, plug into our system, and take it away from there. I think Anthropic is making a very smart move. Perhaps this is why they didn't want to do the merger. Also, perhaps they noticed the merger was a complete gong show, and they were alarmed on, like, that's sketchy, and regulation aside, I don't even think something like that would get passed. But regardless of all of that, I think they're like, when they hear the desperation of this company coming to them and saying, hey, you want to be our CEO and just like take us over, they're like, actually, we're just going to crush you with some tech. So, and then, 2 days later, next day, they launch all these big updates. And I think they're going to start seeing some serious adoption on a level they probably haven't seen before because of this strategy.
You can't avoid it. I mean, you can't avoid it. And listen, so we've talked to our OpenAI friends and everything like that, and they're like, listen to the developer relations people, everything like that, and they're like, look, no, everything's business as usual, and I can't imagine that they would let that drop. But just like the board is really putting them in a really, really tough position, right? To sort of say like, hey, how are you going to keep up all this up? Because what it used to be thinking is like, well, nothing's going to change now. It's just the future. But if the entire company leaves, it is a weird game of chicken right now that I just have no idea how it's going to turn out, because the board is not saying anything. They also haven't kind of quote unquote exposed Sam Altman. They haven't tried to get the public on their side, and not that they need to, but why would you not? I mean, why would you not just at least sort of share, hey, this is what's happening, at least hint or something like that? I mean, when Emmett Shear wrote that long tweet sort of accepting the role, saying, yeah, I had a 9-month-old I wanted to spend time with, but now I'm going to go back to work and I'm going to go to OpenAI. And it was this long email, and most of it was just like, blah, 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 I'm going to do an investigation, whatever. But then he had like a PS about, hey, this isn't how I'm going to usually communicate all this. But then he had a PPS. And I've never seen a more consequential PPS to a tweet in my entire life. And the PPS went something like this. He said, clearly, I'm paraphrasing, he's like, clearly there's a huge commercialization thing here. I would never be so insane to join a company that didn't like, I don't want to use the word prioritize, but I don't want to, he was like, I would never join a company that wasn't completely committed to the capitalist ideals of the corporate structure in America. Like, so don't sort of like think that we're turning, actually, you can't even say don't think we're turning into a nonprofit, because it literally is a 501c3. But I mean, clearly, like even he was sort of trying to get that word out. But where is the board in all this?
Where's the board? He's out there making public statements that they hire some random guy to come in as the CEO. Obviously not a random guy. Obviously he's got his own things he's done. But like they hire this outsider to come in, and the outsider is speaking on behalf of the company. While still we've heard nothing from the board since their first statement and all the chaos that they've plunged the entire company into. I think at this point they know they're in big trouble. They know they messed up. Quora CEO probably knows like the jig is up. And at this point, saying anything is not going to help. Coming out public is not going to help. They're going to get eaten alive in the comment section. So at this point, I think they're just saying silent and holding back. And that seems to be their strategy. It's going to be very interesting to see what they can pull off, if they can pull anything off. How, like, my big thing is like, when does the deadline pass that all of the employees actually quit? We have like 715 of 707 or more, I don't know, that say they're going to quit. None of this has happened. So I'm absolutely holding my breath for like what that means, really hoping. Like, I love OpenAI. I hope they pull through. For me, one of the big takeaways in all of this is really the importance. Again, I cannot stress this enough. When I started building AI Box, which is my no-code AI app builder and marketplace, everyone's like, oh, why don't you just make it with just OpenAI products? It'll be like faster. You don't have to worry about all the APIs for everything else. We're very committed from the beginning. And I think every software company and every company listening to this needs to get the same takeaway, which is you need to be able to build your products on a model agnostic system. So that's what we're building with AI Box, is a model agnostic platform. You can build an AI tool and build workflows with any AI model. Sure, throw ChatGPT on there today, but if the whole company collapsed and all of a sudden Anthropic's the best bet, you could just go in, swap the model instantly. Nothing's broken. If this is, if you have this wireframed in or put into, embedded into your product, you're not going to see any disruption. You're just going to be able to change it. And you need to build systems like this, because in a crisis situation like this, where we don't know what's happening to this platform, even if OpenAI survives and keeps running, the rate of development is going to decrease. Everything's slowing down. You need to be able to build on a model agnostic system. So I cannot stress this enough, that it's really what we're trying to build over at AIbox.ai.
Yeah, it's a really cool way of doing it. And I didn't see, when you first sort of like tell me about it, I was like, okay, I can see that. But now it's funny. It's sort of like buying fire insurance. At the very least, you're like, I don't need fire insurance, and then it's like, oh, wish I had fire insurance. Yeah, no, I love the system like that. I mean, so here's the thing, Jaden. Like, okay, I'll give you my takeaway. You give me your takeaway. Prediction time, right? My prediction is that somehow this will be resolved. They're going to lawyer up. They're going to get, the board is going to get immunity of something. Everything kind of goes back to normal. Even Satya Nadella was sort of saying like, look, I'm not closing the door yet. I just cannot see a scenario where OpenAI literally shuts its doors. I still think, even when everybody says it's dead, even with Emmett Shear as CEO, I still think that if I had to guess, I think Sam Altman will end up back as CEO. What about you?
Yep. If I had to put money down today on a prediction, there's a few things I'll say that factor into it, but I have the same opinion. I think Sam Altman is going to be leading his own independent AI company, whether that's OpenAI or he starts his other. There's no way Sam Altman and all of these top AI scientists are just permanently embedded in Microsoft. He's not that kind of guy. He started a company from zero, built it to 90 billion. He's not just going to get embedded. But I think I think Nadell knows that. And when he brought him in, honestly, I think it's a very smart strategic position because number one, it doesn't tank Microsoft's stock price. Number two, he's like, no matter what, we'll be working with him. And I think the reason he offered that is to put extra pressure on OpenAI's board to be like, oh, look, Sam Altman's not gone. He's still going to be your boss. He's just your boss over at Microsoft who owns a share, and he's going to still be telling you what to do. So like, I think Nadell set that up expertly, and he probably knows Sam Altman's not going to be his permanent employee. He's going to be running his own thing. Now, if for some reason the board refuses to relinquish control and they lawyer up, and there's like some way that he can't get back in, yeah, I think he'll start his own thing, to be 100% honest. But I don't see that happening. One way or another, that board is gonna get dissolved. It's gonna get sued. Microsoft's got unlimited resources to help with that, and I think that one way or another, Sam Altman is going to be running an independent AI company within the next 3 months. If it's his own company, it's going to be 3 months. Otherwise, hopefully in the next week or so, he can get some control back of OpenAI and change the governance structure.
Agreed. Listen, I'm posting a ton on YouTube. Jaden has over on AI Chat is dropping stuff. Like we're both putting stuff on LinkedIn, everywhere else. Like just keep along. Guys, this is a soap opera happening right in front of our eyes. It's amazing.
Thanks so much for tuning into the AI Applied podcast. This has been a ton of fun. Make sure to follow Connor on LinkedIn and YouTube. Crazy stuff coming out. Make sure to rate us and give us a review on this podcast. We do these emergency podcasts because we love you, but I hope that you all have a great rest of your day.